It's showtime, it's yo time. It's game time, it's go time. You got one shot at a gold mine.
Welcome to the third season of Black Voices in Color, where we discuss profound topics that focus on Black identity, culture, and Black excellence. We are a student podcast produced by Denver Public Schools that elevates the voices of Black students in our district. I am one of your hosts, Anai Beasley, and I'm returning with
Savannah Bland,
Joshua Ayite,
and Emmanuel Paris.
Since this podcast is focused on Black identity, culture, and Black excellence, today we wanted to talk about a major part of Black culture, the history of our music.
Yeah, coming into 2025, there's been a lot going on. Like, our senior year's coming to an end. Music for me is definitely a go-to. And politically, how are y'all feeling about everything?
I feel like we're definitely living through history right now. Everything is going to be okay, though, and we'll just have to make the most out of being able to live our normal lives as long as we can.
Yeah, but it does honestly feel like just something else to worry about on top of being seniors. We got to worry about colleges, scholarships, and our future. All that's going on right now isn't making things any easier.
Exactly. I feel uneasy a lot waking up and going through everything knowing that I'm graduating soon. It just makes everything worse.
Exactly that. Not only is all this chaos going on in the world, but the fact that we're moving further into our senior year, I know it's going to be even crazier looking back and knowing this was all going on while we were about to graduate. It'll be way more memorable.
Yeah.
Way more.
And watching and thinking about the election makes me feel so grown. I get all the notifications on my phone all the time. I used to go about my day not caring about politics, but now I feel like I have to. I'm not ready. I'm literally about to be an adult.
Literally, I'll be watching the news more than my grandparents.
Right. I realize we're going to experience college with Trump being in office, though. Yeah. So I wonder what that's going to look
all
like for us.
All 4 of our years.
Right. It sucks.
All 4. I'm just worried about the future for all people of color. Like, the DEI policy that helped so many workers in various fields has been removed, and for many, it's harder to be seen. This Black History Month was unforgettable.
I'm right there with you. I feel like Black History Month is such a key reminder of the ongoing struggles in progress. You know, the fight for justice and equality that Black people have led. It's still shaping so much of today, and especially in the political bubble.
Yeah, just seeing the cancellation of policies that were made for Black people and to ensure their rights, like DEI, is concerning.
Yeah, we always have to continue the fight for the right to be human. And honestly, all I see around me is history repeating itself.
Over and over.
What I do know is that college is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And even with the state of the world right now, we can't let that determine how we're going to live.
Yeah, for real.
Life might look crazy years from now, so let's live in the moment.
Right. I'm still looking forward to college parties, though. I got to see what the hype's about. You know we got to turn up for sure. But it's honestly so frustrating seeing all these rights and policies just being snapped like at the finger. It just It feels like we made so many strides yet to just have them taken away in the instant. But, you know, as a senior heading to college, it's really, you know, like a bittersweet feeling of 50-50. It's that I'm excited for this new chapter, but it's hard to ignore how much work still needs to be done in the world. But it's important that we acknowledge it and face it head on because it's clear that the fight isn't over yet.
Yeah. The lack of acknowledgement and appreciation in our history makes it scary to be a part of. Black people have worked so hard to create a community that is diverse and inclusive, but it is slowly being challenged. That's why today's episode is Black art rooted in culture, amplified by music. This episode will be specifically about Black culture and influence to give knowledge to a generation. A great way to express our significance is to demonstrate the various ways our Blackness is shown up in our schools, the community, and the culture. It is important to talk about our own Blackness as individuals, so I'll start. My Blackness is controversial, half Black and half white, having to understand the Black identity within myself. It is beautiful and it is different, but it is seen in a variety of lights with millions of opinions on how I should act and who I want to be. My Blackness is what I make out of it, the resilience and persevering past the misjudgment and the misguidance.
Resilience.
Oh.
That was good.
My Blackness is alternative. Growing up, I found myself interested in skateboarding, guitars, piercings, and things like that. And what I found in those community or interests is a community of cool and unique people. And it's really fun with the right people around, but a lot of people don't understand that, and that's what makes it alternate.
For me personally, my Blackness is unique. It's powerful. It's full of and rich with history. Growing up with Haitian and Ghanaian parents, it's naturally a part of who I am. My Blackness is shaped by generations of strength, generations of resilience and beauty. My Blackness carries the resilience and the beauty and strength, and it's a legacy of struggle, triumph, joy, and sorrow, and it's definitely a force that deserves to be protected, celebrated, and most definitely respected.
Well, my Blackness is, coming from two black parents and being recognized as just that. Like, literally, I've always been my own person, and I would say that I am kind of different, more on the awkward side. I usually don't really fall into the category that a lot of black people are stereotyped as, and there's times where people actually call me whitewash, and it just confuses me because I just think, I take a lot of offense to that, because I think, what do you mean by that? Like, you're saying that there's a certain way black people are supposed to talk and act, not only insulting me, but categorizing them as a whole. It's like everyone has their own personality, and I understand in the past I've always been on like the quieter side, but that's had nothing to do with my background or where I came from. It's just who I am and what I'm used to, you know? And no matter what, I am still a black girl who's been through the struggles of being discriminated against or portrayed as something I'm not just for being black. But since we are mentioning how like our identity and our blackness and how it defines us, this would be a good time to talk about the roots of black culture and how we've set a bar for a lot of the creative art styles and things that are really popular today.
I mean, definitely. As we close out the chapter to February, which is specifically a month dedicated to prioritizing and acknowledging our black success and celebrating black history, we cannot and we won't ignore the profound impact that music has had on shaping the black experience, but not only that, but the world and the culture at large.
I definitely feel like we need to shine the light on the part of history in music that people don't know. The origins of our music, the origins of the music that millions of people of all races enjoy. It's important. Music itself is history, and people sometimes don't even think about the purpose itself, and not just a few lyrics, but the importance of a genre in connection to our culture.
Yeah, like gospel music. Like, most people don't even know during the times of slavery that the slaves were literally forbidden to speak their native languages. And because slave owners like physically feared that they would plan ways to escape a rebellion, it was always some type of like strong fear. So to them, music became a familiar way of expression, and whether it was sorrow, whether it was through hope, they would begin singing and creating songs that were passed down to generation after generation. I mean, oftentimes we see these songs today, like, most people refer to them as spirituals, though. Like, there were songs of freedom and survival. They were influenced by African religious traditions. And many people today say that the gospel music that we hear today derives from these spirituals that they used to sing. To me, just hearing gospel has power in itself. Do you guys listen to gospel music at all?
Yeah, I do actually. I listen to gospel music for like spiritual reasons, like to get closer with God. And a lot of people don't understand gospel. I feel that most don't know you're supposed to resonate with gospel like in your heart.
Yeah.
Like deeply rooted inside you. And I feel like Christianity isn't displayed as what it actually is. I feel like today it's just watered down.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I mean, I listen to gospel music sometimes, but I feel like there has been kind of a cultural disconnect. I think it has become where society idolizes instant gratification, and people have become more focused on socially relevant music than songs that can really connect with your soul. I think that sometimes people go to music to distract themselves from life rather than using it as a mechanism to help provide hope in a world that often feels disconnected.
That was good.
I think many people do think that way, but I think that there is still need for more outlets or artists that can really connect with what is needed and what is already favored. What do you think, though, Josh?
Definitely. For me personally, I agree. And on that same level, like, even being a musician, I feel like it's an unreal responsibility to me. You know, I might not be the world's most popular, you know, the most known, blah, 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 but to the percentage of people that do listen to my music and do enjoy my craft, I try to keep that same idea, and I try to play a hand in restoring that personal connection. To me, it's, you know, through all my music, it's the same thought. It's how can I sow a seed yet leave them with something that resonates, you know, because everybody's music taste is not the same. So that versatility has to play, that creativity has to play. But I definitely feel like as a musician, whether big or small, that I have to play a hand in that.
I'll be honest, gospel music was never really a big thing in my household growing up. I mean, I have listened to a few songs, and of course my grandma listens to it and stuff, but kind of like what Paris said, I do think it's not just something you listen to. Like, you got to actually be able to reflect on your own life and how you connect to that music.
Yeah.
And I really like how your heritage has had a big impact on your own music taste. It's good that you've always been connected with the roots of the music genres. A lot of young adults don't even know that there's a lot of symbolism behind the music they may have heard growing up, and especially gospel music. There's always some kind of deeper meaning behind the black music that's been put out there, and our people have wanted to communicate message about trials they face for decades.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like, today's music is nothing without Africa's origin. I mean, from the rhythms of the spirituals sung by the enslaved ancestors, we see it present every single day. Better yet, back in the day, take a song like Follow the Deacon Gourd, an Negro spiritual full of metaphoric symbolism, tons of room for interpretation, and even the song was message encoded in itself. You know, it was telling the enslaved people to follow the Big Dipper constellation, which was a constellation actually shaped like a Deacon Gourd in the night sky, and they would use this to, you know, navigate their way to freedom through the Underground Railroad. So when you think about music today, you know, you got artists like Little Baby who got songs like The Bigger Picture, talking about how there's a problem with today's society and it's not going to change overnight, but we have to make moves and we have to start somewhere. So you kind of see the messages from way back when to today present in all the types of music that we hear today is evident. Music has always been more than just a sound.
Yeah, it's so empowering to think about how music was an outlet for our ancestors, a way to empower themselves no matter the circumstances. And Africans have always had a way of living that expressed the spiritual connection, like a higher form of life.
Yeah.
Wait, that J. Cole song was the one you played on the piano, the keyboard, right?
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Be Free.
Yeah.
It's a great song. Ms. Brown showed me that. Shout out Ms. Brown.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was cool. But I noticed that whether it connects to slavery or fighting for equality, there's so much visualization behind the older R&B music and hip-hop. Black people have always known to take it to a whole nother level when it comes to the creativity. Like, an example would be in Kendrick Lamar's song, Blacker the Berry. It contains so much insight about the Black struggle and even correlates with other artists from the past. Like Tupac, who included the same phrase in one of his songs, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
Yeah.
This is a reference to colorism and how the darker your skin complexion is, the more likely you are to face oppression in your life. And the referencing in the music is really deep, something that's definitely made us stand out as a whole, giving us an image that's unique and not like any other culture.
100%, 1,000%. Music is different. It's wonderful. It's a powerful form of resistance. It's a vehicle for storytelling. It's a method and a great and strong way of preserving our history. I mean, for centuries, Black artists have used music as a tool to express their joy, pain, struggle, triumph. You know, they're creating genres and movements that continue to influence the music industry today in a variety of ways. I mean, regardless if the sky was to turn red, Africa's origin is found in everything, and especially in music. We got a variety of genres today, like hip-hop, jazz, rock, R&B. You love R&B. And the list goes on. And that's 90% of the issue today because, you know, they never really give us our credit. And two, they probably don't even know. So I'm glad to be able to, you know, play a hand and be here today to educate them on things like that.
Yep.
And I genuinely feel it's important because it's lyrics and music like these that kind of drive us to that empowerment, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of creativity and empowerment, one genre of music that came from spirituals was jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz is like a genre that empowers your soul because it's sort of like an uplifting sound. And using slow tempos and rhythmic sounds, jazz has become a genre. And so many people actually call jazz songs spiritual because the feelings and moods jazz can give you, it puts you in like a different world.
Please educate them on some good jazz because they don't know nothing about that.
Not gonna lie, I love jazz. Like when you be playing the piano and just like all the different instruments, like it's just something different that you can't get from other music types.
Yeah.
Me too. Like, I really like jazz. I've always viewed it as like a therapeutic like genre, and we're actually old enough to go to them jazz bars now. So y'all should let me know.
I want to go so bad. Like I always see like speakeasies and stuff and like movies and stuff. They are so cool. I want to go.
I'm supposed to be getting invited to play at one soon, so I could definitely.
Are you
try.
serious?
I'm dead serious.
What?
I've been trying to find people to go with. So
we should go.
Yeah,
When are you doing that?
And congrats.
Hopefully this April. It's supposed to be like the first week of April, so hopefully it doesn't clash
That's
with the
what's up.
assembly. But
No, that's what's up though.
Yeah.
Let us know.
That'll be fun.
I like jazz. Jazz makes me productive. It makes me like want to study.
Not for real. Like when I was little, my grandma would play it, so I would fall asleep.
Jazz makes me want to like make music and play the piano or something. Like I'm in one of those bars and like get dressed and all fancy and like go out or something like that.
Yeah, jazz like reminds me of the movies. And just like
How did I know you were gonna say
slow, just
movies?
bro, whatever.
You and your movies, man.
I love movies too.
All right, so jazz has kind of always been a collection of sound, which is why it's kind of hard to define an origin where it came from.
I found that too because like I always listen to jazz or just even in my research, like you can tell like when you hear jazz, it comes from so much variety and versatility.
Yeah, like around the 18th and 19th centuries, that's during like the U.S. slave trade. So during that time, slaves were being relocated to the U.S. and with them they brought different cultures, different tastes and just different cultures all in general, and that's a whole bunch of stuff. But it was the united cultures in the 18th century that they basically collided in Louisiana. Slaves would play music at the Congo Square on Sundays, when the days they didn't have to quote unquote, work. And this is a piece of jazz's history. And in the 19th century, slaves worked in fields they used to sing work songs and spirituals. And when they mixed with African rhythms, that's when blues basically came into the mix. That's when they were recognized. And that's another piece of jazz's history. And then the music that eventually became jazz evolved out of a widely ranged, gradually assimilated mixture of black and white folk musics and popular styles, and with roots in both West Africa and Europe. And then after slavery, around the 1920s and stuff like that, that's when the jazz era became popular, and people like Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington became popular.
That explains a lot of why there's so much unity in more of the southern states and stuff, with the musicians, because it makes sense that most jazz originated from those areas, and they still like to encourage growth in that category and reflect on how much things have evolved since then. It's what they grew up on, and it's really a part of their identity, you know?
Yeah, jazz also evolved over time, and in the 90s, hip-hop was introduced. That was that time. That was that time. Many artists used to incorporate jazz in their beats, and they used old jazz and remixed it, and they used it to provide smooth synth and current trending sounds.
I think that's a big reason why I like underground music. When I listen to underground music, I'm shocked every time. I never expected to hear Billie Holiday and Young Chris on the same song. And it's crazy because I don't think I never would have heard Strange Fruit if it wasn't even for that song, Blown on the Leaves.
Me either.
So to me, that was just big in itself because I would have never heard that. And just hearing that and seeing how different they used it and the creativity behind it, it really shocked me. So the creativity is also inspiring to me, especially being a musician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like hip hop is a really creative music genre, and it's implemented a lot of what's went on in the world in time, into the revolutionary pieces of songs and stuff. An example, this is just random, but TLC, they did a lot of hip hop videos back then, and they had a lot of symbolism. They would put condoms on their clothes or stuff to symbolize protection, and it was just real things like that. A lot of real world problems like police brutality and inner city poverty have been told through hip hop, and have been one of the main reasons attention was brought to certain subjects in the first place.
Yeah. Hip hop wasn't just about music, it was about culture and a movement, and it originated in the Bronx and New York, and in the 70s and in the 70s, and that was basically the time frame about when the war on drugs happened. And there's a lot that goes into that, but that time frame of hip hop, it allowed artists to address these issues. Also during that time, the economy crashed and many companies went out of business. Buildings were abandoned and poverty in the quote unquote ghetto increased. And those buildings were used by the urban youth in the Bronx for block parties, and it became their hood, And music for these parties were played on mobile sound systems and boomboxes. Yeah, those big.
I love when they used to go out to the movies and go see their girlfriend play the music. Every time I hear boombox, that's all I think of.
That was my thing, yeah.
That's all I think of. I haven't heard that in a minute. I feel old now.
Yeah, an example is a group called The Public Enemy. It was a hip-hop group that pointed out the corruption of the government and addressed racism in songs like... what is it called? Fight the Power. Yeah, y'all remember that song? It used to be real popular.
Yeah.
I definitely think hip hop was the biggest kind of culture shock, I guess, in a way. It really embraced the idea of not fitting into societal norms, and it really was just an embracement of fashion, music, culture, excitement, movies.
Yeah, all that.
All of it. All of it. 90s movies, they're the best.
No, 90s movies good.
Poetic Justice, Juice.
Yeah, I watched them. But I don't watch Tangled.
No way you can brought that up.
Or Princess and the Frog. Don't even.
Hey, hip hop also made fashion statements. It made a whole bunch of the fashion that we wear, even still today. It made it present. So things like Timbs, bomber jackets, baggy clothes, sneakers like Adidas, snapbacks, and more. And people even made statements with their hair. Artists like Run DMC made Adidas famous, and LL Cool J rocked the Congo hat. Going back to the Black Panther Party, they wore afros to represent their pride in their natural hair. And groups in hip hop like Kid and Play wore box cuts and high top fades.
Bro, I had the meanest high top fade all through middle school.
We need to see pictures. Are you serious? You probably look like the kid from House Party. Have you seen House Party?
You know I ain't watched that movie.
And I feel like I can imagine how that would look.
Everybody who's seen House Party knows what I'm talking about. He had the tall one, and he would have like his little like scarf and everything. We need to see pictures.
Them pictures are never to surf the internet.
Another thing that was very present in those time frames was recreation and self-expression through art, like music, dancing, hairstyles, and even things like graffiti. Everything like that led to the popularization of the art form graffiti and breakdancing. And graffiti was such a popular part of hip hop because like being able to put your spray your name on a wall and have it like go past a city on the train was something really cool back then. It's still pretty cool. I really mess with graffiti.
You guys know how to do all that?
No, I've always liked the idea of doing it.
I always thought you did.
I'm really good at like doing the letters. I can like trace out the letters. I don't know if y'all saw for like the Black History Month, I made all like the blackout posters, so I can do like really good like big bubble boxy graffiti letters.
Okay,
I like the graffiti letters.
Artsy.
Yeah, breakdancing was another level of self-expression back then. There was dance battles, dance crews, and everything. Like with the boom boxes and stuff, people used to bring out cardboard and put it on the floor. They used to like do what spam moves.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and thinking about the hip hop era makes me feel like I have an old soul. Like I've already experienced life because I align with that hip hop mindset.
Right.
The hip hop era was an era that showed the world that expressing yourself and creating something was really cool. And those early hip hop artists made their music because it's something that they love to do, as well as push back suppression. And what do y'all think though? Y'all think y'all have old souls?
I don't think so. I think there's like some scenarios or like some things that I do or I might say or like specific actions I might do that people might be like, he got a glimpse of it in him, like, or like a small piece, but overall, I don't think people think that of me at all. I don't think so.
Honestly, I feel like low key you do have an old soul. I just feel like on a regular basis, like who you are, people would think you have a new soul. Like with me, I feel like I don't know if I would say that I have an old soul. I would say that some of the things that I like might be old soul. Like
no, definitely your music. Every time I hear you play music, I think you're also for sure.
I just love old music. I don't know. I feel like that's the main thing though. But I feel like I could still get down with like the new stuff.
What's the new stuff?
I'm trying to think like Ice Spice. But Pookie's Requiem. I forgot what the girl was who sang it, but it's popular now and I loved it. I love new music and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm a kind of mixture of both.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Anna?
Well, honestly, kind of like what Josh said, it's just kind of the opposite. People might look at me and be like, "Oh yeah, that girl's not a old soul," but I do think I am an old soul in a way because I feel like I have more of an authentic kind of vibe. Even though I am usually either quiet or awkward, I feel like I'm very genuine in my interactions with others, and I have good awareness of my surroundings. Like, it's something that helps me navigate through life in a more natural way, not trying to fit in with anyone.
Yeah, and everything going on today, it's really starting to feel like the repetition of what we heard about the civil rights movement. We have a rollback on policies, protests happening, and we're still fighting for equality in so many ways. Like, they can feel like all the efforts made in our history was for nothing. Our fight never ends. Our music is our history, and it's a piece of our history that remains relevant.
Yeah, 100%. To me, it feels like we're just stuck in this loop in the process. The progress that we've made, it begins to just feel challenged over and over again. It's like, even though we're stepping into this exciting new future, getting ready to go to school, getting ready to branch off in the next chapter of life for us, it's like we have to carry those same fights and those same passions with us to let it burn inside of us because it's very empowering in a way, but it's extremely exhausting at the same time.
Right. I feel like it really does show that in our country, our rights never have been validated, and we've always had to protest to be heard or for them to decide on respecting us.
Yeah. And during all this, it does kind of make me think of, like, the Black Panther Party. Like, they were the most influential militant Black power organization during the Civil Rights Movement. They confronted politicians, challenged the police, protected citizens from brutality. Men and women fought against oppression. And even their outfits were a movement of evolution. The uniform with the all-black leather, the afros worn by many Black Panther Party members, it was strategic, it was symbolic. It reflected African Americans' desire for their demands to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Right. Like what you were saying, like during the civil rights movement, participants dressed professionally and classy, and people would describe their clothes as Sunday's best suits. Dresses, skirts, and well-groomed hair made up the civil rights movement uniform because Black people wanted others to treat them with dignity and respect.
Yeah. I really want to understand, like, what powered their strength. It feels like our generation is hidden behind our phones and everything. Like, we need to start our own revolution. We need to make a move. I want to know what really, like, pushed them to drive and strive to even create the Black Panther Party.
I mean, to be honest, they really had that, like, old R&B rhythm and blues. I feel like that's something we miss today. I think that, like, people really said that rhythm and blues was the soundtrack for the ascension of Black pride.
No, yeah, I even heard that R&B in the 1940s was actually called race music. It was a term for African American music. Like R&B originated in the 1940s when it replaced race music as a general marketing term for African American music. Even though it like usually referred to only secular or non-religious music, the term first appeared in a commercial recording in 1948 when RCA Victor Records began using blues and rhythm music as descriptor for African American secular songs. The migration of African Americans to urban centers in the Northeast and Midwest during the early 20th century helped to bring various regional styles of African music together and influence one another.
I was even doing my own research, and the Black Panther Party, they had their own mixtape, but it was more like soul and funk, though.
Well, soul was influenced by R&B in the late 1950s. Its passionate vocalizing, powerful rhythms, and honest lyrics spoke directly to a young generation of African Americans. And soul music blossomed from just that. It makes sense why it was prominent during the Black Party era. It was hopeful, and that's still how R&B and soul feels. Like, people may say my music is old and romantic and stuff like that, but since I listen to so much R&B, it really does connect with my emotions. I like to listen to music that calms me and makes me feel expressive about things. Like, I love music like Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu, and then I like newer artists too, like Ella Mai, Kehlani, Janae.
No, yeah, R&B really pushed the boundaries of music. Like back then, it was really something special. Like that time was just
Unique.
Yeah, it was something else. The mixtures with all music types kind of go back to me talking about hip hop and jazz. Everything came from a purpose. Like really, music was really made for a purpose back then. I feel like we need to go back to that.
Yeah, the main difference is really just the purpose behind the lyrics and the intention behind it. The intention in R&B now is somewhat shallow and not as surface level like it used to be. There is a lack of originality, and the songs that are being released in today's world, you can't really connect it to your own lifestyle.
Yeah.
Something I can really appreciate about our generation, though, is how we like to be different and think outside the box. I think a lot of new artists who are categorized as R&B like to be like right along the lines of it. I think that many artists infuse all types of genres to make music and to make people feel different and unique ways. And I really just feel like the main differences between old and new R&B is the technical advancements and the storyline to it now. You know, we don't have everything that was going back on in the 50s and the 60s, you know what I mean? Like we have a new timeline, we have a new society and everything.
Yeah. I feel like our generation uses their music as more of a voice to communicate a message for the youth. You know, like I see artists trying to provide messages in their music and in their character alone, just as a person in general. Most of the underground artists I listen to use their platform to promote authentic self-expression.
Right.
Like, they weaponize their self-expression to break the societal norms that are placed upon us all, and to break that saying of being a copy, you know. And a lot of the youth think and act similarly because we live in media so much. Like that's where I get my authenticity from, is the people that I listen to.
Yeah, I agree. I think music is important, and it's a great tool to use and to capitalize on to break societal norms, especially for a lot of upcoming artists who prioritize authenticity. You know, that's big. For me, though, I feel like modern music, it seems to focus more on like self-gratification, sex, fame, materialism, more rather than, you know, having that spiritual connection like you guys said, or focusing on putting their faith in God, or whatever the topic may be that's more resonating, you know, like leaving that aspect of life, it goes unaddressed, and especially in the mainstream. the mainstream is big.
No, that definitely is true. Like, the creativity is nice, but sometimes it can be seen as a little bit unpleasant, especially when they're promoting a lifestyle that's not good. Like, it's not getting you anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like no shade to any of these artists or anything, because like I said before, everyone expresses themselves in different ways, and the world would be boring if everybody was the same. So it really just depends on messages you're sending and the way you present yourself.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I feel like just the power that goes within it, I feel like some things that are popularized, they are kind of losing that presence of God. And I feel like in music, since it has faded away, you'll see some like underrated artists like you guys are talking about, like really trying to promote that kind of feel to it. But I feel like our generation has become kind of numb to pain, and I feel like that's more what we like. We like stuff that kind of distracts us from the pain, then kind
takes
of like
us away from it.
Exactly, instead of like more embracing that feeling and using music as an outlet to kind of feel power.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that artists have been popping up more and more, and music expands. Like, you know, there's a whole bunch of genres and everything popping up, and I feel that I've seen a lot of artists nowadays who make songs for God to express their faith, and I'll be one of those soon. But it's not the same as it was before, because there's not, as you said, there's not all those things happening. There's not everything that was present back then happening. Everything around us is different. So different music is being made. So music has kind of a different feel to it now.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like with our generation, like people don't realize how broad we are. I feel like everybody likes their own unique things. You know, I don't feel like everybody likes one kind of genre of music, you know? And I just think that like with me, I love everything. I mean, I'm kind of structured along the lines of R&B, but it's still like the different aspects. I like the slow stuff. I like the hip hop infused. I like the gospel kind of feel to it. Right. So I'm really just big on like channeling energy. So I feel like everybody uses music in different ways. Like some people might use it to help with anger or to make them feel like more motivated and stuff like that. And definitely there's so many different kinds of people, but I feel like nobody can really categorize our generation on like the music we listen to, because there's so many different kinds. But like I really want to think about like, what do people think that our generation likes? Like what would they kind of say is like a broad statement of our generation?
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like our generation kind of likes nostalgia, you know, but I feel like someone who doesn't know our generation would probably say somebody like Sexy Red, Ice Spice, Glorilla. I don't even know.
Yeah.
But they mean, like, they would probably mention someone who's really big on media, because that's all we do is like scroll on TikTok and stuff like that.
Right.
I agree with what you guys are saying though, because I feel like it being multiple music genres is just proof that there's multiple different personalities and different kinds of people, because if that was the case, all movies would be made the same and all songs would be made the same. But people know that everybody has different interests and hobbies, and there's just certain things that maybe other people's go to that other people may just not find interesting at all.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Like when I hear my mom talk about today music, my dad, like, it's just a mess. And everybody's just kind of like all over the place. You know, there's some groups who are doing activists, and there's some groups who are going against the very same things that we're fighting for. You know, there's different varieties, different things. So I think a lot of times I just agree. It's just a mess. Our generation is all over the place.
Right. With all that being said, though, I'm still going to talk about Black music, the roots of Black music, and all of that, because no one can determine what we talk about or ban others from mentioning or celebrating certain events that led us to where we are today. And I feel like there's always room for discussion when it comes to the way our people lived and what we fought for back then. With all the chaos that's going on in the world right now and the new policies that are being made that revolve around Black rights, I see this as a bigger reason to talk about the overall movement and the individuals who are dominant in those categories.
Yeah, what troubles in the world today really make you want to talk about Black people's position in the music history? Like, I know there's a lot of controversy right now, artists present, but yeah.
Well, since the new year started, I think just watching all Black people come together like they never have before, it just really puts a toll on me, and it shows me that there's still a legacy we're trying to make and keep alive. to this day, it's important not to let that part of our history die down.
Yeah.
And just knowing that there was a time where Black people were excluded from the trends that a lot of people were engaged with at the time, the fact that we went through so much trouble to get ourselves in the positions we are today, and we're used to just having those things handed to us, it's just something to never forget.
Right.
Yeah, I remember you going on about that in class, and I know you have some real examples.
Yeah, I found some really good sources actually. Like, according to Global News, there were originally multiple Black artists who wrote their own versions of a song that became popular. But unfortunately, white singers who had more recognition at the time took credit, causing original artists to be buried in the industry and never truly credited for their own creations.
Yeah, and especially like different vibes and aesthetics of artists. Like even Betty Boop, like her whole image of kind of just being like very like small and kind of like babyish, and how it was kind of her image was changed for like the media, and it was stolen by like white producers and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Betty Boop is a great example, and a lot of people don't even really know what her true background is and
Yeah, I
identity.
didn't find out about that till like this year. So.
Right. They just see her as the like white cartoon icon she's painted as, but her real name was actually Esther Lee Jones, and she was known by her stage name. Baby Esther Jones was a Black jazz singer in the 1920s who inspired the cartoon character. And an example would also be Willie Mae, also known as Big Mama Thornton in the 1950s, which I found this post from the Washington Post. She wrote a song called Hound Dog, and it was a hit. Back in the day, it gave her more recognition as a female artist, because it was hard for people to really care about the work you created. So it even landed her on billboards in the rhythm and blues chart, and she was a huge influence for Elvis Presley, who at the time was one of the biggest American singing icons and actors idolized by a lot of people. But several artists had already made their songs to the hit, and they were kind of unsuccessful with it, not as successful as Elvis was when he came with his own version. And at that time, that's when Big Mama Thornton's work had kind of gone down the drain, because Elvis was more successful and popular. So that gave people a reason to kind of look at him like, oh, we don't have to pay attention to this, Black female artist. He was already in the league, And when he came out with his song, King of Rock and Roll, it actually got him on the charts too. And it just kind of it's clear that he saw potential in her music, but it's just worse when you have your ideas kind of stolen in a way. Because it's like, even though you took a liking to my work, you still didn't give me the credit I wanted, because it just sucks.
And that's actually pretty discouraging, hearing that. And knowing that nobody came to speak out, no organization, no individuals came to, advocate in that way, that her music was stolen, or even more artists' music like that was stolen. Like, me personally, I can imagine how good it would feel and how supportive I would feel if somebody, spoke up on my behalf and with me to acknowledge, like, hey, I'm facing this, standing in that gap with me.
Yeah, every type of art form involves inspiration, of course, but stealing somebody's work is like, it's undermining their efforts and stealing their creation. Like, it's dehumanizing to a point.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think inspiration plays into our Black music?
Well, Black people love to use their role models as inspiration, and we always reflect on what we've seen in our own personal lives. We tend to use those models as a way to shape our own creations and indirectly communicate our life troubles.
Yeah.
But it's really never meant to be in a plagiaristic way. It's always original. But now, there's nothing wrong with using someone's art as a reference, and it's great that we've all built off of each other's creativity. But it's different when those original creators aren't given the slightest bit of credit for bringing something into style.
Yeah, and I really do think Black people are really just really creative and innovative. You really think about how everything was started from something else, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Especially when it comes from the African rhythms and the drums and everything. So it's really just how everything can lead to something else, and everything really has like a meaning to it. I love how we're so great at being, how do I say it? Just like creative, we can create something off of something. You give us an idea, we'll turn it into something so much bigger. You know what I mean?
Give us an inch, we're gonna make it into a mile.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I feel like it's really important to look at and value a lot of the Black artists there are out there today.
Yeah.
Because there was a point in time where it was hard for us to get our art out there and get it sold to the public. It was very underrated at the time, and I know it was hard for a lot of artists to be seen. So I know the artists today should be very appreciative of
Yeah.
where they are.
It's nice to see how many like black artists there are in the media, and it's nice to know that they're making good money.
Right.
Like I just be thinking about I be thinking of Tyler the Creator and stuff like that.
Kendrick Lamar.
They got millions and millions because they're just being authentic.
Right.
And that's what like I feel like we finally deserve, you know what I mean? So it's nice to have role models like that, especially in the media, who aren't just, you know, making music for like just how do I say it? Like
For
they're
just
not
the public.
exactly, they're
Yeah.
making music for them, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we thought it was very necessary to acknowledge all the roots of these well-known music genres. You definitely hear a lot about the same things every year. Certain individuals fought for a lot of racial discrimination to be overlooked.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's extremely important information to talk about all that because it's definitely still relevant till this day. But we want to hear a little more about the true origins and how black people were responsible for lots of the trends we're used to everyone being tapped in like it's nothing.
Yeah, it's good to know more than usual, to see more of our history. It's like refreshing and cool to hear about.
And adding on to that point, it's really eye-opening to have these discussions because I learned a lot just from this little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, black people have really made a difference, and it's necessary that everyone knows about the history and significance of all music and black culture.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation, and thank you for joining us on Black Voices in Color.
If you enjoy our show, please let us know how you're feeling about our topic so far and what we'll be discussing as a whole. Leave your comments or feedback on our Instagram page and be sure to come back for our next episode.
Of course, until next time.
Be sure to
Awaken the soul, empower the mind.